Archaeology experts have found absolutely no evidence whatsoever that Hebrew Jews lived as slaves in Egypt or of their exodus from Egypt. The plain truth is that Moses didn't lead Hebrew slaves out of Egypt any more than Charlton Heston did. So who was that bearded man with a magical staff named Moses? There is not one shred of archaeological evidence for the existence of Moses or of any of the Bible's main cast of Hebrew characters, from Abraham to Jacob to Joseph to King David to King Solomon. There is, however, plenty of evidence for the existence of Egyptian pharaohs who these biblical characters are based on. The Bible's Old Testament has carefully covered up the connection between the Egyptian pharaohs and the Hebrew patriarchs by mixing up historical facts with myths and legends. Historical records show that the Semitic Hyksos kings ruled Egypt for over 100 years. The Egyptian people rebelled against these Semitic kings and pushed them into northern Egypt. By 1500 BC, a peace agreement was reached between the Egyptians and the Semitic Hyksos, which allowed the Hyksos people to leave Egypt peaceably and move to Palestine and Jerusalem in the Egyptian-controlled land of Canaan. Their gradual and peaceful migration closely matches the Bible story of the Semitic Hebrew exodus from Egypt into Canaan in 1447 BC. According to the Bible story, when the Hebrews arrived in Canaan, they renamed it Israel and divided the land up into 12 tribal states, which they named after the sons of Jacob. Jacob's favorite son, Joseph, stayed behind in Egypt. Joseph hid his Hebrew identity by marrying an Egyptian wife and changing his name to the Egyptian name Zaphanath-Paneah, which means he who can reveal secrets. According to the Bible, Joseph ruled Egypt as the Pharaoh's top vizier and bought up all the private land in Egypt from the starving people. Then he taxed them out of 1/5 of their income. Was Joseph the chief vizier of Pharaoh AHMOSES, who negotiated the peace agreement allowing the Semitic Hebrew Hyksos people to settle in the Egyptian-controlled land of Canaan? The Hebrew connection to the Egyptian pharaohs is further revealed in the biblical story of Moses. The story begins with the Egyptian pharaoh ordering the deaths of all Hebrew baby boys.
Oh, no! They won't get my baby. I'll find some way to save him.
The Hebrew mother of baby Moses tries to save him by hiding him in the bulrushes on the Nile River.
What's that? A baby!
When baby Moses is found by the princess daughter of the Egyptian pharaoh, the princess decides to raise him as her own son. Moses now has two mothers, a royal Egyptian princess mother and a non-royal Hebrew mother who hides her identity as Moses' Hebrew mother, gets a job as a servant at the palace, and helps the princess raise Moses. Why did the Bible omit the historical names of the pharaoh's princess daughter and the pharaoh? Their historical identities can be found by comparing the dates and events of the Bible story with factual Egyptian history. All dates followed by the letters BC count backwards to 0, which is the beginning of today's Christian calendar. Bible researchers have calculated the birth of Moses at around 1520 BC. The ruling pharaoh of Egypt at that time was Thutmose I, and his princess daughter was Hatshepsut. Egyptian history verifies that Princess Hatshepsut married her brother named Pharaoh Thutmose II. But when Hatshepsut couldn't produce a male heir to the throne, her brother husband chose a non-royal mistress named Isis to produce a male heir and named their son Thutmose III. Hatshepsut raised the boy as her own son, even though Isis was his real birth mother. The Bible story of Moses closely matches the factual Egyptian story of Thutmoses III. Even the names Moses and Thutmoses are almost identical.
At one point in time, they decided to stop building pyramids. They said, we got a big mountain here that looks like a pyramid. So what we're going to do is take all of the pharaohs and put them inside this one big pyramid. I forgot to start my clock, so I don't know where I am on the time of this here.
So Moses, the servant of the Lord,
So Moses, the servant of the Lord,
died there in the land of Moab,
died in the land of Moab, which did not exist.
according to the word of the Lord.
See, that's what I like about that. See how it says that? Moses died in the land of Moab according to the word of the Lord. Not according to fact. According to the word of the Lord. Go ahead, read on.
And he buried him in a valley in the land of Moab.
And he buried him in a what?
In a valley.
In a valley. This is called the Valley of the Kings, y'all. And God buried Moses in the valley in the land of Moab. But what about it? Go ahead.
Over against Beth Peor.
Over against something.
But no man knoweth of his sepulchre unto this
But
day.
no man knows where he's buried. Until today. Nobody knows where he's buried. Of course not. See, this is what blows my mind. I can show you burial sites of people that date back 8, 9, 10,000 years. I can't show you one burial site of one person mentioned in the Bible. Not just Jesus, none of them. We can't find David's burial site. You can't find Ezekiel's burial site, Jeremiah's burial site, Daniel's burial site, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, none of them. Look at the person next to you and say, that ought to tell you something. Here, the Bible says that they don't know where Moses is buried. I'll tell you why. Because there was no Moses. They copied it from this dude.
Send us a lot of Moses to lead the nation.
The tomb of Thutmoses III.
In the Bible story, Moses gives up his big chance to be the richest, most powerful ruler in the ancient world to become a lowly, poverty-stricken Hebrew laborer. But wouldn't becoming ruler of Egypt and Canaan have been the most intelligent way to help his fellow Hebrews? The historical facts show that's exactly what Thutmoses III did. Once he grew up to become Pharaoh of Egypt, Thutmoses III organized military campaigns with his mighty armies and chariots and defeated the enemies of the... After his famous Battle of Megiddo in Canaan in 1479 BC, Thutmoses installed district governors in garrison cities throughout Canaan. Did Thutmoses choose his district governors from the 12 Hebrew tribes named in the Bible? Is it just a coincidence that today's Temple of Isis, located on the Isle of Philae in Egypt, has the same name as Thutmoses' mother? Some suggest that Thutmoses III built the original Temple of Isis to honor his Hebrew mother, who was named after the goddess Isis, and that the temple was later restored by the Ptolemy kings. An inscription inside the temple identifies Isis as the mistress queen of Egypt. Today, Thutmoses III is immortalized in stone in the corporate city-state of London, right next to his Egyptian obelisk honoring the pagan Egyptian god Amun. Why has UNESCO and others spent billions of dollars and years of labor moving the massive tonnage of the Isis temple and obelisks honoring the pagan god Amun?